Hello, friends. Welcome to episode 1329 of the Locked On Hawks podcast. I am your host, Brad Rowland, coming to you on a Tuesday, October the 18th. The Atlanta Hawks open their season tomorrow on Wednesday, October 19th, with a home game against the Houston Rockets. And a lot going on, honestly, in the Atlanta Hawks world and the NBA world overall. In fact, I dropped a new podcast on Monday evening in the wake of the extension deadline about DeAndre Hunter, as well as some latest news and notes from that stuff. Bogdanovich, Capella, some shooting guard preview stuff, mailbag questions, etc. That is still available in your feed right now. But I also wanted to share with you this two-part episode that I recorded with Robby Kalland earlier this week on the Western Conference over-unders. We recorded on the East about a week and a half ago. At this point, Robby is a friend of the podcast. We do these shows every single year. And on these two parts, we talk about the West, every single team, their over-unders and their win totals, and a sort of a season preview on the Western Conference side. You're about to listen to part one or watch part one on YouTube if you want to go that route as well. And then we have part two dropping about the same exact time on Wednesday. On Tuesday. So as soon as you listen to this podcast, part two should be available for you in your same feed. Please subscribe to the podcast. We will have one more sort of season preview-ish episode that's going to drop on Tuesday evening into Wednesday on the Hawks to prepare you for the opener on Wednesday. So we're going to be very, very busy on the podcast right now. And the best way to find the show is to subscribe on the platform of your choice. Apple Podcasts, Spotify, Stitcher, YouTube on the video side, and much more. Follow the show on Twitter at Locked On Hawks. Follow me on Twitter at BT Rowland. And after a break to hear the intro, I'll be back with part one with myself and Robby Kalland.
You are Locked On Hawks, your daily Atlanta Hawks podcast. Part of the Locked On Podcast Network. Your team every day.
I am joined once again by my friend Robby Kalland. He is back. We talked about the Eastern Conference about a week ago, and today, on the eve of the season, we are talking about the Western Conference over-unders. Robby, welcome back to the podcast.
Thrilled to be here. Let's just dive in. The West is the bottom. I think maybe more bottom heavy than the East in terms of we've got some real contenders for Mr. Wembanyama, I'd say. So let's get into that.
Yeah, there's some real ugliness here, and just as a reminder, if you did not listen to the Eastern Conference, we're going to talk about over-unders and win totals. All the numbers are from BetOnline, and until we say so, we're not recommending a play on everything. Not every over-under is a firm play for us. We'll kind of give that some context along the way, but here we are, and we're recording this on Monday to drop on Tuesday, so keep that in mind too for injuries and stuff like that. So, all right, let us dive in. We're going to go in reverse alphabetical order, and that means we have a couple of hideous teams at the beginning. And team number one is the Utah Jazz. The current number on the Utah Jazz is 23.5 wins with some juice on the over. I usually talk about last year's win total for some context. It doesn't even matter this time.
Not relevant.
Turned over their entire team. Gobert, Mitchell, Royce O'Neal, Bojan, Daniel House, all gone. They bring in Colin Sexton and Lauri Markkanen, and Malik Beasley is on this team. Jared Vanderbilt's on this team. THT's on this team. I don't know. There's lots of stuff going on here for the Jazz. They're going to be bad, but are you more on the 538 side? They have 39 wins for the Jazz this year.
39!
39 wins.
I'm not on the 538 side. Look, this is in the very firm stay away for me because It really comes down to when they jettison their guys and how many of them they get rid of. I think what's maybe a little interesting about this year is, with it being 14%, spread across the bottom three teams for a lottery odd, there's not quite the same incentive to try to be the absolute worst. So you can get away with that. And if, we'll get to San Antonio, I think they're the front runner right now as far as like worst construction. But Utah can get there. Like Utah can get there even with having some functional pieces that they got back in the trades. Colin Sexton, we'll see what he is, but he's going to get points. He's going to get buckets. And then Lauri Markkanen had a great summer playing for Finland in the World Cup and all of that. And so we'll see what they look like, but look, like this team is going to be bad. Obviously the number paints what everybody expects them to eventually become. And it comes down to when they trade their guys, Bogdanovich gone, sorry. But Jordan Clarkson, whether they trade him,
Kelly Olynyk, Mike Conley. Yeah, there's all kinds of guys.
Like Mike Conley said he doesn't really want to get traded because his kids are in school already there and he doesn't really want to move if he doesn't have to, but he understands the business and all this. And so he's not pushing for it. But it's like having too many veterans works against you because you might steal a couple wins that you might otherwise not by playing young guys. And so it's going to be interesting to see how they advance through the season, but we know what Danny Ainge wants to do. Like, we know exactly what his plan is. We've seen him go through this before in Boston when he traded off KG and Paul Pierce and said, like, let's dig down and try to get some picks. And if we can stay, in that instance, they could stay decent for a little bit longer. But the goal is to get Vic or Scoot, and they're going to do their best at some point. And it just the number on this comes down to just when they do it, because I think if you could give me a number for the back half of the year, I would take the under.
Yeah.
If you give me a post All-Star break number that's based on this number, it'd be under.
Sure.
Right now it's a stay away because they might have a marginally okay first month before everybody gets traded.
Yeah, and that's the piece of context, and that's why the market's gotten smarter. The bookmakers have gotten smarter on these low ones because, like, not to defend 538, but they don't know that the team is not trying. In terms of, like, if you look at Utah's roster, like, I'm still not as high as that projection has on Utah. But if you just assume they would keep all of their guys and try to win every game, they would fly over this. They would fly over this total, I think.
For sure.
They have some real guys. Like, Sexton is a question mark, but 2 years ago he averaged 24 points a game and, like, was pretty good. Same thing with Conley and Clarkson and all those guys. So yeah, I tend to just say no thanks on all of this. But I'm with you. If you could do this adjusted for the second half, Danny's going to lean into the tank, I think, at some point. So speaking of that, the San Antonio Spurs are next. San Antonio's number is 22.5, a win lower than Utah. They won 34 games last year and actually had even a better point differential than that. But they traded away their best player to the Hawks, actually, DeJounte Murray, of course. And then they also lost Lonnie Walker. They basically announced they were going to rebuild. They drafted 3 guys in the first round. Rookies are generally bad. And here's the one thing for me with the Spurs. They don't have a primary shot creator on the roster. That's the thing. They have a bunch of guys who you kind of like Devin Vassell. I like Keldon Johnson, good player. They have some guys. It's just the fact that they don't have a number 1 or even a number 2, really. And they don't have a point guard either. Like, Trey Jones is kind of it. It's just a weird team, but they have Pop. Like, are they going to lean in as far as other teams are? Maybe not, but will they even have to?
I think they've already done it.
They kind of already have.
Like Pop came out immediately and said, "Don't bet us to win the title." Like, I mean,
thank you, Pop, for that. Appreciate
obviously, but at the same time, like, even bad teams don't tend to kind of tell you what they're going to do. I mean, again, stay away because I think Pop genuinely enjoys the challenge of coaching these young guys. He's said as much.
Teaching, baby. Getting back in the lab.
Yeah, it's reinvigorated him in a way, but, like, they're going to be bad, like, for all the reasons you said. A lot of Joshua Primo.
I mean, this is a very reductive way to say it, but, like, their best player is Keldon Johnson, Jakob Poeltl.
Yeah, and he's probably getting traded.
Yeah, I mean, if they move Poeltl, then he's the only guy up front that can stop anybody on this team. They don't have a guy who can create shots. Yeah,
McDermott's probably the most reliable shot maker, not creator. He's not a guy.
Yeah, they genuinely don't have a shot creator.
They are going to. They're going to see what Primo is and see what he can do from that. Trey Jones is. I think what he is, he's not a high ceiling guy, but he's fine. He's a competent point guard and brings you something there, but good defender. But yeah, I mean, like, but he's not a shooter. Like, that was the whole thing in college. Like, Trey Jones, like, couldn't shoot at Duke for, like, a whole year.
Even college basketball.
Even I know that. Like, I don't look at that. You're so proud of me. I mean, they're going to be bad. They're going to trade some guys. I think they should keep their young guys, even Keldon, unless somebody comes with some crazy offer for him, but I can't imagine that happens. I got nothing on the Spurs. I think if anything, it's oddly it's under because I think they are the front runners to be I would rather bet them for worst record in the league than anything, if that's a available market.
Yeah, the only reason why I would not like advocate a little bit harder on the under is just the infrastructure. Like I think they might win some games because Pop exists. Like I
Well, and
don't
all
think
those
that.
guys have played for him, right? Like it's
Yeah,
not like they're all rookies, like they have the 3 rookies, they have Sochan, they have all those guys, but like you said, like the main guys are still third-year guy type.
Vassell and Keldon, and if they keep Pirtle, he's going to win them a couple games just because he's really
He's
good.
a great defender.
So yeah, no thank you is my answer for this one as well. I would lean under if you made me choose just because they're going to be bad, but I can't see them winning more than 30. That would be stunning.
No, I would be fairly shocked if they win more than 25, but that's still 2.5 wins over. So yeah. I think the ceiling here is probably 25 wins, but there are ways to do that without having to, try especially hard.
Today's show is brought to you by LinkedIn Jobs, and these days, every new potential hire can feel like a high-stakes wager for your small business. You want to be 100% certain they have access to the best qualified candidates available, and that's why you have to check out LinkedIn Jobs right now today. LinkedIn Jobs helps find more people for your team faster and for free. I've had to hire a few times in the last few years. LinkedIn Jobs has proven to be an awesome resource. It's incredibly easy to create a free job post at LinkedIn Jobs. They have high-quality candidates that you need to locate the best possible hire. Then once you're set up, you can add the job in the purple hiring frame to your LinkedIn profile to spread the word that you're actually hiring. And LinkedIn Jobs has simple tools like screening questions that make it easy to focus on candidates with just the right skills and experience. You can quickly prioritize who you'd like to interview and eventually hire. You want to finish the year strong, and finding the right team member is a key piece of doing just that. It's why small businesses rate LinkedIn Jobs #1 in delivering quality hires against leading competitors. LinkedIn Jobs helps you find quality candidates that you want to talk to, and they help you to do it faster. You can post your job for free at linkedin.com/lockedonnba. That is linkedin.com/lockedonnba to post your job for free. Terms and conditions apply. Let us move now to the Sacramento Kings, a team that is actually weirdly better than the two teams we just talked about. The Kings have not made the playoffs since you were in college, I think, maybe before that, high school. I don't know. I can't remember how old you are at this moment, how long it's been. They've been out of the playoffs for a long time.
I think I was in high school.
The Kings are projected to be pretty frisky, and with good reason. Last year they won 30 games. This year, the number is 34.5. They're definitely trying to win, which we'll come back to as a reason maybe to lean one way or the other here, is that they don't want to tank. Like this is their one team in the league, I think, more than any other that would be thrilled to be in the play-in. Like most teams don't want to be in the play-in. The
Them
Kings
in
would love to be in
Washington,
the play-in.
I feel like are right on the exact same plane.
Agreed.
Like, they are so all in that they are, and I think, and above them, but in like Chicago, just because they've traded their pick and they can't.
Yeah, they're in too. But I mean, the thing, I guess if the Kings were so bad that they were like way out of it, they might tank. But if they're anywhere close, they're not going to stop.
Oh, yeah, no,
they're going to push all the way through. Yeah. Obviously, they get Kevin Huerter in the offseason from the Hawks. They get Malik Monk. That should give them more punch on the perimeter. Keegan Murray is a guy who could be better than the usual rookie would be. Mm-hmm. They do lose Justin Holiday. They lose White Dante. I don't know. They have a lot better offensive talent than they had previously. They have Sabonis now, of course. Their personnel is very bad defensively. Yeah. Like they're banking on Mike Brown to be Mike Brown, which Mike Brown's good at defense. It's just like the theory of the Kings being pretty decent is that they really might be a top 10 offense. It's just that their defense, you're hoping Mike Brown gets into like 24th, and that would be enough.
I'm probably going to watch a lot of Kings games because I have to work 3 or 4 nights a week, and like they're going to be one of the more fun West Coast late night teams on League Pass when there's like 4 games and the Kings are playing somebody. Like that's going to be pretty fun. So like that's good for Kings fans. Like I'm happy for them that they theoretically have a fun team because I like a lot of Kings fans. This is a stay away for me because I think this number is about right. 30, 34, 35 wins, that puts you right on the fringe of the play-in most years in most conferences. We'll see if that's the case this year in the West. But, they're going to be fighting for that 9-10 spot. It's really hard to see how they are anywhere close to top 8.
Agreed.
Just because of the depth. Like the West, I think there's a more clear line between maybe the 11th and 12th team in the West. But that top 10 is just brutal. like you said, like
we'll come back to them,
their
but like
guys.
I do think that the Kings might be like in the tier with the Blazers. We'll come back to that, but like I think they are, to what you were saying, they are solidly better than the bad teams, like the very bad teams.
Yes.
So that also gives you some wins too. Like I think Vegas appropriately lined this where they are kind of in their own round. They're in their own range in the West.
They are clearly, like you said, they're clearly above. It's really like, can they be better than Portland? And the reason they're not there is because Portland has Damian Lillard, and that is worth a significant bump in wins because you have a guy who is proven to win you games.
Right.
And the Kings do not have that guy as much as I like Sabonis. I still believe in De'Aaron Fox. I think he's a very good player. And like you said, Keegan Murray, it's going to be funny because this year is going to be a big Keegan Murray victory lap, I think, for Kings fans, taking him over Jaden Ivey. Whereas the Ivy pick for Detroit is talk to us in 5 years.
Future facing.
Because it is Ivy is he could be a super duper star if everything comes together. And Keegan Murray was like built to be an out the box starting 3-and-D, like ready to rock. But can he be much more? And maybe he can. Like maybe he can keep taking that leap, and that's kind of what the Kings are hoping for. But I do expect Kings fans to enjoy this season a lot, especially because we mentioned on the East Pod, Jaden Ivey's going to get a lot of chances to get the ball up, and probably won't be super efficient. And so numbers wise, I bet Murray looks better on a better team. But we'll see what the long-term layout looks like. And that's why Detroit's happy with their pick. And that's also why Sacramento's happy with their pick. I think that actually worked out very nicely in the 4 or 5 slots in the draft.
Yeah, that's, I think, probably what part of why they took Murray. They're trying to win.
Yes, 100%.
That's at least part of this whole thing. And, we've used Portland as an example. We'll transition to them now because there are only 2 teams in the West that have win totals in the 30s. And it's the Kings at 34.5, and it's the Blazers at 39.5. Everybody else is either in the 20s, 40s, or 50s. So they're kind of in their own space. The Blazers are another team, kind of like the Jazz, where you kind of have to just throw out last year's numbers. They just tanked so incredibly hard from like January on.
It was really impressive. It really was.
As soon as Dame went down, they trade CJ and everything was just,
They traded Norman.
Covington.
They traded Norman Cove first. They
traded
them, and then they traded CJ, and it was
Nurkic. They almost clearly told him that they would give him a contract if you just shut it down, and they immediately paid him probably too much, seemingly because of that. All of it. I mean, Dame is back. The question is how good Dame is at this point. Obviously, he's still going to be good, but he was not great pre-injury last year. Nurkic is back. They add Jeremy Grant, who should help. They add Gary Payton II. They didn't really lose much, honestly. They don't have a ton of defense on the wings. Like, they do have Grant. They do have a guy I love, Josh Hart. They don't have a ton of depth at wing, and also the backcourt defense. Dame and Simons might be pretty flammable.
It's a good word for it.
But I mean, we've also seen that from Portland forever. Not that CJ's probably a little bit better than Simons, but
just size-wise, but not. He's just a little sturdier than Simons. But
I mean, for me, I don't know about you. For me, this entire thing is Dame back to being a top 20 player in the league, or is Dame in a new phase of his career? If Dame is the guy he's been in the past, I couldn't take the under here. Correct. I don't know if I take the over. I couldn't take the under. If Dame, but if you think Dame is not going to be that guy anymore, I don't see a path for them to be a 500 team if he's not really capital D Dame for me.
Yeah, I think this is definitely one of the wait and see type lines where I think it's really out, like you said, it's out of respect for what Damian Lillard has done and what he can be, which is a top 15 guy that leads you to an awful lot of wins.
Perennially too. I mean, and in the same way, to bring it to kind of do a Hawks comparison, Dame has kind of been what Trae has been in the fact that if Dame is healthy, Portland has been a consistent top 8 to 10 offense in the league as long as he is healthy. And it almost doesn't matter who's around him. But again, Dame is in his 30s now and just kind of had a lost season. And the question is whether you could do that again. But I think what you said is great. The respect for Dame, because I've never even been the biggest Dame guy, but you can't doubt his offensive bona fides in the regular season. He's going to lead you to wins.
Right. And that's the other thing is he's also a guy that very clearly can lead a team to carrying in the regular season, which is an underrated factor in win totals. That was always a thing. Yep. Portland was always a favorite of everybody that had a model, always picked the Blazers to be under, like for years, because nothing made a lot of sense, and they would look bad in the playoffs, and you would go, well, like they're worse. The defense at the point of attack, they don't really have it. There's all of these things, but they always, those Stotts Blazers teams with Dame and CJ always just outplayed people over the 82 games. Like they just played hard. Same thing with Toronto.
Yep.
Toronto was always that team with Lowry and DeRozan, especially. They just played harder than you when you come in on the third and four nights and you're just tired and you got to deal with this guy who's running around and putting up 30 footers and, playing as hard as he possibly can, which is part of the reason he had the ab injuries. He would not stop playing because he played the Olympics, which he shouldn't have, but
probably not.
Good for him. Got a gold, whatever. But all of that is, that's just how they're wired. And I think they have guys that are going to be like that still, like all those guys that you mentioned that they brought in, Josh Hart, Jeremy Grant, like they seem like guys that'll buy in on that and give you that. And it's a matter of, if they get to a play-in, if they get to the playoffs, then maybe the talent deficit, depth deficit, and issues become more glaring. But if Dame's that guy, like I wouldn't be surprised to see this go over. And I'm with you. I would not bet the under out of respect for that. But it is hard to project. Somebody's got to lose in the West, and you are worried that the talent deficit is enough elsewhere around him. I think you have to be a really big Simons guy to buy in on this. And I think Simons has impressed me. I did not think he was a guy, and he has been very good. We'll see what happens when he steps in that role next to Dame. But this is a stay away, and it's hard to advocate for either side, not knowing the health and also just knowing that if he is, he wins a lot of games.
Yeah, I don't love it. I think if you absolutely made me take a side, I'd probably take the under just for the uncertainty factor with Dame and with the lack of depth on this roster. Frankly, they don't have a ton of it anywhere, but he might make you look silly and win 45 games and do Damian Lillard things. So a no play for us on the Blazers. Next is your former hometown team, the Phoenix Suns.
2 hours south.
The Suns are a weird one because the vibes are terrible in Phoenix right now.
Horrific.
Just absolutely terrible vibes. But
awful.
But they won 64 games last year.
Yeah.
And they had a 61 win point differential. So it wasn't like they were faking it. They were clearly the best team in the league last year in the regular season. And the number is 52.5. And they didn't change anything. I mean, they lose Jay Crowder probably. He's still on the team right now as we record this. They lost JaVale. That's a little bit of depth that they lost. And Aaron Holiday played some good minutes for them last year. He's now on the Hawks. But they didn't really lose much of anything. They bring Ayton back. He's not thrilled, I don't think.
But happy, but
listen, like
paid.
They should still be good. I have a hard time, even with the vibes, going under on the Suns. I just don't think there's any reason that maybe Chris Paul is just going to finally meet the end this year.
Yeah.
I don't know, though. That number is modest, it seems, on paper anyway.
Yeah, like I don't like the backup point guard is still an issue. Because it is Cameron Payne who has fallen back to earth post bubble.
It's Cam Payne. They have Dwayne Washington Jr. They have Landry Shaman, who's more of a 2. Yeah, it's not great. I mean, it basically becomes Devin Booker if Chris Paul is not going to be around.
So that's not great.
No.
But
they have Saric back too, we should say. He doesn't look great right now, but he's a helpful piece if he gets right. Yeah,
they were really good when they would toggle small ball, big ball before he got injured 2 years ago. I mean, look, like I get that they lost to an Australian team in the preseason. I
don't care about that.
Everything looks awful. I think this is an over. I don't know if I want to lock it up for all the reasons everybody knows going on with the Suns, the sale and terrible vibes, and Monty and DeAndre Ayton apparently didn't speak for 3 months and 4 months, and plenty of reasons to believe this could crumble, but I feel like it's more likely they're a top 4 seed and it falls apart in the playoffs again, right? Like, they're just really good. And, like, they should get something for Jay Crowder. Like, that's not going to be a trade where they just don't get anything.
Well, as we actually talked about, you and I talked about that on the Hawks podcast last time. It was like they want to win. They're not going to trade Jay Crowder for
Picks.
Nothing. Like,
nope.
They're going to get something. It may not be as good as Jay Crowder, but they're going to have something.
They're going to get I think they get a backup point guard. I think that's exactly what they're trying to shop for. And I think they're going to say, hey, like, I think they're going to try to get Derek White because Boston has apparently been willing to discuss him in some
former
deals
former Celtics legend Jay Crowder as well.
So. Yeah. I mean, they're on the list. I think it's possible that is what the target is right now. It makes the most sense to me if you're the Suns and you're saying, what do we need? And it's like, do we really want to rely on campaign for 20, 25 minutes a night again? And I don't think they do. And if they could get a Derek White, I think that makes all the sense in the world. So I expect them to go try to get somebody like that. I don't know if that's the exact guy they get, but I think that's where they go. And if they get that, then I feel much better because then you can rest Chris Paul some. Then you don't have to worry quite as much because that, I think, is the biggest issue is if Chris Paul misses considerable time, they get much worse because not just because he's Chris Paul and he's very good, but because they just don't have a sustainable option behind him with how campaign played last year.
Yeah, I wouldn't play the under. I'll tell you that. I have a predisposed nature to not play a ton of overs on numbers in the 50s, but this might be an exception because like they were literally 9 wins better than this last year and shouldn't be much worse. So I definitely would lean over. I don't think it's like a best bet or anything, but I would not take the under. No, thank you on that. Let's go to the Thunder now, a different team than the Suns, let's just say. No Chet, unfortunately, this season for the Thunder. They basically had the same over-under this year as they finished with last year. It was 23.5 is the number this year, and they finished with 24 wins a year ago. They were dreadful on offense. They were 30th in the league, a.k.a. dead last. They were competitive on defense last year. They didn't really add vets. They just kind of brought in more rookies and continued to churn. It's kind of the same story it's been for a long time. They have Shea. They have a guy in Josh Giddey that they like. Lou Dort's back on a big contract. The front court is like one enormous shrug, basically. I'm just going to name some guys in the Thunder front. This is great. This is great radio.
I love it.
But Poku, Usman Jang, Kenrich Williams, who's a favorite of the internet. I like Kenrich Williams a lot.
The internet does love Kenrich.
That's a guy.
Going back to his New Orleans days.
Jeremiah Robinson Earl, Darius Baisley, the other Jalen Williams, the Arkansas big. They have Marquise Chris, I think, unless they waive him today, which they might, but that was happening earlier. Anyway, and also old friend, favorite of ours, Mike Muscala, still on the Thunder.
Hey.
And playing well. He's had a sneaky good career.
A revival for Moose.
Still like Muscala. But yeah, I mean, this is a team that has like a bunch of weirdness. And like, is Shea going to play the whole season? He hasn't yet.
I mean, that is the question. I can give you a little inside tip. He shockingly, he's not really thrilled with sitting.
Can't imagine why.
I remember I got offered an interview with him, and they're like, "Hey, can you not ask about injury stuff and trade stuff?"
Yeah.
So. I'll be interested to see how they go about this because look, Sam Presti is not shy about anything he does here. He is Hinkie-like in the way that he will brazenly tank. And if there were ever a season for them to want to go all in, it's this year, and it's whether to get Wemby or even they would be thrilled with Scoot, and then you could move Shea, and then there's reason to do it. I'll be very interested to see how this goes. He's played 35 2 years ago and 56 last year with some mysterious soreness stuff. I'm not sure if he will do it again. I don't know if he wants to do it again. I don't know if they want to do it again. It comes down to if you tell me Shea plays 70 games.
Oh, over.
It's wildly over.
Yeah.
If he plays 55 again, it's probably right on the number again. I don't think he plays less than that. And for that reason, I'm going to stay away. And if anything, maybe lean over. But like they also are as good as it gets at losing every single game the second half of the season. Like,
yeah, and
they have been at like 16 a couple of times, 17 at the deadline, and won like 5.
And Presti has no shame about it, which is the reason why I can't take an over, because he just, and I think this is the right approach. Just for the record, I agree with him on this. He just doesn't care at the end of the season. He said it as much. And they have lineups. They have so many guys on this team that they can play that will lose you games without even having to try to lose you games. They run an Isaiah Joe. Actually, kind of like that move. He was available after being cut by the Sixers. But yeah, they, even the guys who are their building blocks, like Josh Giddey was not a winning player last year. He was a negative player last year. Like the flashes are really good, and he might be really good, but Poku is still a giant question. I don't know. I think that if they had Chet,
Kami is not a Poku guy. How about that?
Yeah, I mean, it's not. You
can put me on the no list there.
That's fine. I understand, but no,
I'll do respect to draft Twitter.
Yeah, because of Shea and because of Mark Daigneault, who I think is a capital G good coach, like he's taken them and kind of made them competitive defensively when he has no business doing that. I wouldn't take the under either. No, thank you. I'm out on the Thunder this season. All right, different team, different situation. The Pelicans, who I just saw in person on Friday in Birmingham, 45.5 wins for the Pelicans. Last year was 36, but they started 3-16.
Sure did.
And we're a lot better than that after that.
It's funny. They weren't as good as I thought they were after the CJ. They're like a 500 team. Like I thought they were like a lot better.
And they also don't make the playoffs except for Paul George getting COVID. So, but listen, they were much better in the second half of the season. And the big thing is that Zion's back. So I get the optimism on the Pelicans. This is one of the ones where I am truly perplexed, because the way that I think about this, they're a buzzy team, and usually I kind of fade those teams that have too much juice. But I also think if Zion is the guy he was 2 years ago, and you just add him into this roster, they might win 52. They might be awesome. I wouldn't pick that, but if Zion was awesome 2 years ago, and I think people know that, but they don't remember necessarily. It's been a little while. He missed the whole season. But if you just add Zion to a team that was pretty frisky last year, Ingram's good, CJ's good, they have some depth. Dyson Daniels is a guy as a rookie who probably won't help them a ton, but he's a good defensive player. Steven Adams is a winner. They have a bunch of interesting pieces, and Trey Murphy I love. So
Trey Murphy Renaissance breakout. Let's go.
I tend, honestly, this is very obvious prognostication. If Zion's healthy, this isn't over. We just don't know if Zion can stay healthy because he's never done it. So that makes me not want to do it, because I guess the question is, can the Pelicans go over this number if Zion misses 30 games?
I think possibly.
Then you probably lean over, because
I'm a believer. You
know what I mean?
This is an over for me.
That's what you need. That's what you need. I think that's what you need to have in your mind, is not anybody's rooting for it, because we're not. We want to see Zion, but if he plays half the season, can they still go over? I think they probably could. Possibly.
It obviously slims the margins. Sure. But I will say, I do think that is a possibility, because like you said, I think they have a good bit of depth. I think they're a well-built team. For all of it was so funny. It's if you talked about the Pelican situation a year ago, with all them kind of being non-committal about Zion and all of that, and all the reports about Zion not being happy, and a lot of people not being thrilled with Griff and all that, he's done a really good job turning this thing around and building a team. You mentioned obviously Herb Jones. Everybody loves Herb.
They have 12 guys. I mean, you're talking about
old Hawks friend Willie Green is really dialing it up on the bench there. I was impressed with him. Love Willie Green. Loved covering Willie Green. 10 out of 10 would interview again. Loved Willie Green. Just honest guy. And he's been really good. The way that they created an offense that kind of took advantage of what in season tweaking stuff to take advantage of what CJ brings and take advantage of what Brandon brings, gives me a lot of hope and a lot of optimism that they're going to work Zion in and be able to get all three guys touches where they like to have the ball. Because the nice thing is they're all different in where they want to operate, and I think that helps. CJ wants to go 3-point line to mid-range. Brandon Ingram is going to be more in that high post mid-range area on the elbow and stuff. And then Zion likes to get it and go downhill. And you can work off of all those things. All of them can work off each other. Then you just park Trey Murphy in the corner and let him shoot 44% from out there. And you got Stu going. I'm in, man. Maybe Gumbo would be more appropriate down there.
I like the Pelicans too. I mean, the depth is real. Like, I know they kind of Alvarado came out of nowhere. Herb Jones being this good came out of nowhere, even if people that liked him, like a lot of us did. Najee Marshall's an adult. Like, he can play as like a fifth wing. They have Garrett Temple still on this team. Larry Nance is their third or fourth big. He's really good. I'm in too. The only skepticism is Zion, and it's not because of his performance. It's just because he can't stay healthy. But I think it's over or nothing. I don't think I'm going to like run to take the over 45.5. It's a pretty high number just for what they've done. But I do think that they are capable of going over that solidly. That tracks.
Let's go.
All right. Let us move to the Minnesota Timberwolves, a team that has a lot of attention on it. 49 wins is the number, juiced to the over pretty heavily on BetOnline. Last year, they won 46. They add, of course, Rudy Gobert. They add Kyle Anderson, a bunch of supporting guys.
I always forget about Kyle Anderson.
He's there. Bryn Forbes on this team. And Ant's a year older, which is important. They did lose some guys, though. They didn't just like get Rudy for nothing. No. They lost a bunch of depth. Malik Beasley, Pat Bev, Jared Vanderbilt, etc. This number feels too low to me. And I'm actually I thought I was going to be skeptical on the Wolves. This number just feels too low to me.
I mean, we know what Rudy Gobert does in the regular season.
That's kind of where I am too. Like, how
he wins games.
How do you win 46 games last year, add the best defensive player in the league, and not get
best regular season defender in the league?
Yeah.
And that's what this is about. This is about regular season.
Exactly. So
give me the over. Like, I know there's some stuff to work out between, like, him and Kat didn't look great their first game together on the offense, whatever. I'm fine with that. It's going to take some time. It's going to be a little hiccup.
It is.
They're going to be really good in the regular season.
Also, Rudy is an underrated offensive player.
Sure. He's good. He's a really good role guy, putback guy. Like, he's got
that fit's not great, but I still think that Rudy is underrated offensively. Like the minutes where Cat's off the floor and you could just run pick and roll with Russell and Gobert, like, you're going to eat in those minutes, I think, especially with Ant on the floor too. The only question for me is their lack of depth. Like, they don't have a lot of depth. Like, you get into their backups and they have some guys that you don't like. You don't hate. Like, Jordan McLaughlin is fine. Jalen Noel is fine. Old friend Torian Prince is on this team. But the only backups that I really trust is Kyle Anderson and, like, kind of I don't know, Austin Rivers is okay. Like, they don't have a top 9 that you love. They have like a top 6 or 7 that you like, and then it's a little bit questionable after that.
Sure.
So if you get an injury or two, you might be in some trouble. But it really is like I think this number is underrating Rudy Gobert.
Oh yeah,
that's where I am on that regular season wise, which is different than playoffs. Like you said.
Because people are not high on Rudy just generally. And there's reason for that come postseason time. Like, there is reason to wonder exactly how this is going to work when they get to the playoffs. I have no question about them getting there, though. Over. This is like a 52-win team.
I like it. I'm hesitant to like go crazy on overs for teams at 49 or higher, but yeah, that's too low. I think this number should be 50 and a half or 51 or something like that. So not a huge gap. Like, it's hard to like blow past a 49 win total. Like, you got to win mid 50s to do that, but I think that they're capable of doing that. Like, I'll say this, it would not stun me if they were the number 1 or 2 seed in the West. I wouldn't pick that, but I think that they are capable of doing that.
Yeah, if they have health and the Cat Gobert thing figure itself out pretty quick, which it could. Like, it was literally their first game because Cat didn't play in any of camp. Like, he missed camp with that.
And he was ill, and all of it.
Lost 20 pounds or something. Like,
and Anthony Edwards, like, I've never been the highest on him, but like, he might be awesome this year. Like, he was already really good last year and is still whatever he's 20, 21.
And Russell should be better with an actual pick and roll partner.
Yep, agreed.
Like, Russell is really good going downhill in pick and roll, and like, that's just not what Cat does best.
As funny as that is, because those guys that was the whole thing, was that Cat wanted Russell the whole time, and they don't really fit
they're
together.
Like great, but they're not perfect fits. But like with Gobert, like their second unit, when Cat goes off, they should. I think you keep Ant and Cat together and Russell and Gobert together as your kind of platoon for rest during games, and then you close with all of them or whatever. But like those two together are gonna eat, because Russell is exactly what Gobert wants in a point guard, which is a downhill guy who wants to run pick and roll, and Donovan Mitchell was an ISO guy.
That he was. It is, you should say. Okay. Well, yeah, we're over on the Wolves. Robby, this is an appropriate time now to end part 1 of this podcast. So we're gonna go ahead and do that. We're gonna sign off for part 1. We're gonna come back for part 2. People should be following Robby where?
Our Kalland. There we go.
If you're not watching on YouTube, if you're listening on audio only,
still
a podcast, Robby. Still audio only in some places.
Listen,
I understand.
It's the future. You can read myself and Brad Rowland for national stuff on dimemag.com, UPROXX Sports, all that good stuff. And for college football enthusiasts, the Puntcast rolls along.
Delightful.
Never encumbered.
The best. As for the rest of this conversation will be in part 2, so please click on over to that. Also listen to us in part 1 and 2 of the Eastern Conference preview that we dropped about a week ago. Subscribe to the podcast, and we'll see you all next time.